We're moving right along here, guys. We got the radiator support obviously mounted on here. We have our hood latch. We blasted that and painted it the stainless paint. We have our vintage air conditioning compressor or condenser on here with the receiver dryer. We're not going to hook these lines up yet because we're not ready to vacuum down the system, and this shouldn't be open for extended periods of time. So we have our lines that go through. As you can see, they come over to a bracket, and we're just going to leave them terminated there, and we're just going to leave these lines loose. They'll be easy to hook up later. There's plenty of play on there, and we can easily hook this up later. So I'd rather have this stuff capped off, factory capped with pressure in it, and not have any chance for contaminants. But since we do have our radiator support on here, we can actually start laying out our wiring harness. We got some brand new American Auto Wire wiring harnesses. Like I said before, under the hood is going to be all new wiring. We have our factory fuse box poking through the firewall there. This is the motor harness, so this one will come out and go that way. Power everything on the firewall and come over and go down. This is that. This one is the forward light harness, so it'll come out and actually run down the inner fender, come over, and it gets strapped right to this radiator core support. So we're going to get that through there before we get too far. We might actually have to take that back off to get it behind there, but I'd rather get that on there. And it's got some clips, so we can actually clip that right in and keep that from hanging down. It will hang through here until we get our inner fender, but that's no big deal. We'll just pull it over. So let's get that laid out and see how it looks with the new wiring. The March pulley setup is killer. All right, we got our wiring harness bolted into the firewall. The two harnesses kind of clip together, and there's a bolt that bolts straight in. All that's good. We have this one kind of comes up, sits in this little strap off the firewall, runs over underneath the wiper motor, which isn't there yet, but once we get that in, here's the wiper motor plugs and the windshield washer, motor and washer plugs, so that'll plug into there. There's a little plastic trough that runs over here we have to pick up, bolts to the firewall. All this clips into and neatens it up quite a bit. This is, I believe this is temperature, so this will probably run down the intake and come to a temperature sensor. For right now, we're just kind of clip this into the distributor cap and just hold all that. It does have the wires over here that run down to the starter. There's a tab that bolts to the bell housing bolt. We're going to have to modify a little bit because this has the blowproof. So we'll just flatten it out and bolt that to that bell housing bolt. These other two wires come down, hooked to the starter. So that's all that harness. It does have the wire. We opted for an HEI plug. What is this one? I forget what this one is. This is probably, I can't remember what that is. That could be, that's probably tack. So this plugs in, and it would plug into the HEI distributor cap for the tack. And then here's the HEI plug for the power wire. We're running an MSD, but we can still use these wires and just plug into them, and these will be our leads. The forward light harness comes over. Again, it will strap to the inner fender. Nice and neat. Here's a brake warning switch. All this comes over. We have it bolted to the alternator. This is the other plug for the alternator, which is different on this, but I think this is a one wire, so I don't think we're even going to need that. This, I believe, it's either oil pressure or temperature sender. So either one of those that'll go to. Over here, horn relay, hot wires and trigger wires and stuff like that. This is our marker light, or our turn signal, the round turn signal that goes into the valance. This is our marker light, headlight, nice and neat over. Here's one of our horn wires. Here's the other horn wire. The horns come off here. The wire's all nice and neat, tied up under. Headlight, ground wire. There's a ground wire over there too. And again, marker light, turn signal. And then over here, there's a junction box that goes right here. This bolts to the junction box. Once we have our battery in, there's a hot wire that goes over to the junction box and powers up everything inside. All right, guys, let's break up this content, this Camaro content, with a little bit more, well, Camaro content. So we're going to jump in. We need to pick up some parts we dropped off to get blasted for this car, this Camaro, and we're going to jump in the Krypton Camaro and pick them up. So let's fire it up and enjoy the ride. All right, guys, let's get underway here. I know I say it every time I get in this, but I just don't drive this car enough, and it's awesome. I love it. We still only have just over 7,000 miles, 7180, and it's springtime. It's time to start driving this thing again. Such a comfortable ride. It is a little dusty, see out there. Definitely have to wash her up. For those that don't know this car, it's a 2017 Camaro SS, 2SS, 6-speed, and it has the Texas Speed package with a VVT 3 cam, and it sounds amazing. So it's got the Texas Speed CNC ported heads, their VVT 3 cam, their long tube headers, their catted X-pipe, and stock MPP mufflers. With right now, of course, the valves are open. But it did do 535 rear wheel horsepower, so it runs good. Beautiful day out. Coming down across the Conolingo Dam. And pick up the parts we dropped off to be blasted for the 69 Camaro. Coming back down over the dam. fun. We're back home now. It's time to get back to work. All right, guys, we're back home, of course, and we got some of these parts painted and installed. So the detail parts, the wiper transmission, we had glass beaded, came up really nice, and we shot it with the stainless paint, and that just looks, you know, brand new, fresh. These are used parts. These are original to the car. They were still in good shape. Everything still works, but they look brand new. We don't have a wiper motor yet, but everything comes out right here. All we got to do is bolt that to it, and we're ready to go as far as the wiper motor. We did get a new pedal pad, and we glass beaded the assembly. So we'll get this bolted and slid through the firewall. That all works as it should with the original spring. We're down to some of the detail parts. Obviously, we got more heavy work to do, but as we're going to do detail work also. We have the e-brake pedal assembly, glass beaded that, painted it. The pedal assembly, so clutch and brake assembly that goes inside. All that's cleaned up and painted. We'll get that slid through the firewall, and then we can bolt our brake master cylinder on. So we got some stuff to do. Let's get to work. We're inside the Camaro now, and we have Dynamat everywhere. We're laying this stuff down. It's fairly labor intensive. You really got to work it down into the cracks and all the creases and get this stuff to stick good. It works the best when there's no air under it. There's no voids under it. So as you can see, we got it all up under the dash. We'll have to reattach our firewall pad after that. We've been pretty busy. Got the seat platforms, and now I'm working on the back sections here, your footwell area for your back seat. But we also got, obviously, our hole cut for our shifter. We got the shifter coming through. Now we can bang some gears. That all worked out really well. Pedal assembly is in. Emergency brake is in and hooked up as far as the intermediate cable, the first cable. All that works. Still have to hook it to the rear disc brakes, but that part is in and working. Like I said, actually the clutch pedal is in and hooked up to the clutch. We got finished bleeding it, but it's roughly hooked up. The brake pedal is not hooked up yet. We need a rod, push rod. But other than that, I'll show you in a little bit the stuff we've gotten done under the hood. But as you can see, peeking through here, we did get the wiper transmission all painted and installed. Looks really, really good. What else can we see from the windshield here? We got our horn relay installed, which also acts as a junction box for our hot wires. Pointing down there, we got our master cylinder bolted on, installed, our adjustable proportioning valve, and right there is the reservoir for the hydraulic clutch. It's mounted on there. So once I get out of here, we did get a belt. As you see in the previous video, we got the belt on and the whole front drive assembly. We're still waiting on hoses to hook the power steering up, but they're on order. Like I said, this stuff is a little bit labor intensive to put down. One thing, I mean, you can work it in to the grooves. If we look at this side that isn't covered yet, we have all these factory grooves in the floor, and of course the body plugs. So you don't want to just sit flat over that. You want to work it down as best as you can into each one of these grooves and around that plug. Follow the contour of the floor itself, and right now we have that roughly cut in place and attached to the flat surfaces. You can work it down with your finger. Like here's a groove here you can take, but it's pretty rough on your fingers. So they make a tool to do it. I've taken a Phillips screwdriver, the butt end of it's kind of round, and you can kind of run that through. Lays that down in nice. Does scratch the black off a little bit, but that's fine. Lay that in. nice rounded edge, really lays it down in there nice, and saves your thumb. So we'll sacrifice the end of our screwdriver for our thumb. So I'm gonna keep working here, get all that laid in there and flattened out, and catch up with you. And there's that same panel after we got all this laid down. It goes in there nice. You can see the plug, you can see every one of those grooves kind of pop out. So let's get this other side done and we'll keep working our way back. We'll have to get some more of this. We're starting to run out. I think we might only have one sheet left and then that half sheet. So definitely have to get more, but we're gonna keep rolling. Here's a little better look outside. Of course, our wiring harness, you guys saw that before. It's all installed. There's that Willwood master cylinder. They say to run this without a booster. If you absolutely have to have a booster, you can add it later, but this should work with the Willwood. I think there's 6 piston up front and 4 piston in the back, and this is supposed to be the master cylinder for that. So we also have a adjustable Willwood proportioning valve. They send out lines to connect all of that. Here's again our clutch master cylinder. We did pop the bolts back out of the steering box and painted them, detailed them, blasted them. Here's our line for the emergency brake. We did get our horn relay, like I said before. It's all mounted and hooked up. This wiring will attach to the inner fender once we get that on.